Hello, everyone. Welcome to another VS Code live stream. We have an exciting show for you today. Got a couple of really great presenters, and they're going to be talking about going from zero to coding Spring Boot applications, which I'm really excited about because I don't really know much about Spring Boot. So I'm excited to learn right along with you. Make sure to take a second to say hello in the chat. Let me know where you are watching from. I see we already have a couple of messages. Med, we are so happy you've been waiting for us. We're here. We're ready to go. It's going to be a good day. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold, so if my voice gives out, my bad. Coder Nerd, hello. You're not using Spring Boot, but you're here for host support. Thank you. I always love seeing you in this chat. Always a great face here. I love when we get to see like recurring people. It's like we have our regulars. I love that. But if you're new here, thank you so much for being here too. We love you as well. Noob Science, hello. Hello from India. I wish I knew what language and what that said, but hello, I'm assuming. Good morning. Watching from the US, from Georgia, nice. I'm in South Carolina, so we're not too far away from each other. Rep in the Southeast. From India, nice. Thank you all so much for being here. Like I said, we have a great lineup for you today. But before we do like to also kick these off with a little bit of a fun note. And we'll do a TikTok Throwback Thursday.
When using chat, you're probably used to going to the bottom left-hand corner, entering a question and getting a response. And you probably think you need to have this left pane open. But fret not, you could have this closed, and then within here, there's an inline chat that you can access by hitting Command-I if you're on Mac or Control-I on Windows, and either hit the / to access some of the commands here, or enter in the question to get a response. If you want to know more about some of these tricks, check out this new series called VS Code Explains.
Nice. That was a short from Reynold on our team. If you've tuned into these live streams before, you've seen him. But that was actually a very timely one because it was about Copilot Chat. And if y'all aren't familiar with Copilot Chat, actually last week, Copilot Chat beta became available for all individuals. So there's no longer a wait list. So if you've been waiting to get your hands on Copilot Chat, once you have access to Copilot, you also get Copilot Chat. So very cool. Check that out. I know we have a couple more hellos I want to get to. When is the September update dropping? That should drop either next Wednesday or Thursday. So a week from today, you should have that in your hands. The following week, we'll do a release party so you can see all the good stuff. All right, we'll say a couple more hello. We got hello from Guatemala, from Colombia, from Chile. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited. Okay, well, with that, that's enough for me. Let's go ahead and bring on the people who you're actually here to see. Rory and Udayani. Hello.
Hey, Olivia.
Yay. How's it going, y'all?
Going pretty well. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for being here.
Olivia, I think I got your cold. Hey, even you sent it down to
I
South
sent it all the way to South Africa.
Yeah.
From South Carolina to South Africa. I mean, it happens. It's because we have our Monday meetings, and I must have just just sneezed on it or something, and boom.
Please don't meet on a Monday. No one should meet on a Monday.
Yeah, that's what we get for meeting on Mondays. Everyone watching, don't have Monday meetings because your whole team will get sick.
And don't deploy on a Friday.
True. Really, I mean, maybe we just leave it at no meetings. Should we just say that?
I agree. I agree.
Cool. Thank you so much for being on here. Rory, I know we've had you on before. Udayani, I know this is your first time, but we're always happy to see new faces. So do y'all just want to do a quick intro and talk about a little bit what you're going to be saying today?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today. My name is Udayani, and I work for VMware on the Spring Tools team. And today we are here to show you some cool stuff on how you can supercharge your Spring Boot development workflow within VS Code, and we'll be sharing some tips and tricks along the way to boost your productivity while working with Spring Boot apps in VS Code.
Nice.
My name is Rory. I have brown hair. I'm wearing a blue t-shirt, and I'm speaking to you live from my home office in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I'm a principal cloud advocate for Microsoft and I empower developers to use the Microsoft tooling. I have a huge crush on Udayani's team, and I've told them that multiple times because I have always waited for Spring tools to come to VS Code. And now not only am I able to use it, but I'm able to talk to people about how they can be empowered with the tooling though. So Olivia, really excited to be here.
Oh, yeah, we're very excited too. And y'all, I can attest to Rory's love for her team because Rory is he'll sometimes do shorts on our VS Code channel, and it's really awesome. But he always is like, "Oh, if I can talk about Spring Boot, I want to talk about Spring Boot." So this is
living
real.
The dream. Living the dream.
Yes. Cool. Awesome. Well, we got a lot of people excited in the chat saying their hellos. Just a reminder, if you're watching, make sure to put any of your questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring it so I can pass them along to our guests and get all of your questions answered. So with that, should we dive on into the demo that y'all have? Awesome.
Yep. I'm ready. And I promised Olivia and Rory here that I'll not use the slides. I'll just use them for talk about the different Spring Boot extensions that are available. And then we'll jump right into the demo to see tooling in action.
Sounds great.
So let's get started. So we all know that VS Code is a popular and versatile code editor, and what sets it apart is its editor-centric approach. But today I'm not here to sell you on why you should be using VS Code because you're already here, which means that you recognize its value. But we'll dive into how it can empower you as a Spring Boot developer and elevate your coding experience. Now, one of the most popular features of VS Code is its extensibility. And it makes it a popular choice among developers across programming languages and frameworks, including Spring Boot. VS Code has extensive support for Java development and extensions tailored for Spring development. We have this Spring Boot extension pack in VS Code Marketplace, which is a collection of all the extensions required for Spring Boot development in VS Code. Now, the extensions part of this pack are the Spring Initializr. This extension automates the project generation, configuration, and setup tasks, which we often find it to be the most time-consuming and error-prone to get started off with. You don't have to go elsewhere to create your project and then import it into the IDE, but with just a few clicks, you can get started off right from the VS Code editor itself. The second extension we have is the Spring Tools. This is the language server for working with Spring Boot applications, and it comes with all these powerful features for easy code navigation, IntelliSense code completion when working with complex code bases. And with the live hover information on the source code, you get this valuable insights in understanding the behavior of the application. Now, these are just a few examples, and we're going to see in detail on how all these features improve the developer experience and productivity while working with Spring Boot apps in VS Code. Now, the third extension we have here is the Spring Boot dashboard. It provides a centralized view to monitor and manage all your Spring Boot applications from within VS Code. And through the Spring Boot actuator integration, the dashboard displays a lot of live information like the beans, endpoints, and you can also monitor the health status of your apps. So let's take a look at what is possible today in working with Spring Boot apps in VS Code. A quick overview on what we are going to cover today. I'll be covering the inner loop scenario where we'll see the power of tooling to create, develop, debug, and test your applications. And Rory will talk about the outer loop scenario. So Rory, do you want to share some thoughts here?
Okay, so it's not that I don't trust Udayani, but she said she's got an app and she's going to give it over to me. And then I'm going to actually take that app and pop it, and we're using GitHub Actions, pop it in a Kubernetes cluster. So I'm going to take the Tanzu build service, build native cloud packs, pop it onto Azure Spring Apps, which is a Kubernetes implementation, look at it with a live view, and then also monitor and debug all the time, also migrate and look at mechanisms of improving it though. So there's a lot that we're going to do today, and I'm very excited. Back to you, Udayani.
Yeah. So showing tooling in action is more fun than talking about it. So I'll jump right into the demo. I have my VS Code open here, and the first thing we see here is the Getting Started guide. It gives a nice walkthrough on how we can use the Spring Initializr integration to create our first Spring Boot project and then utilize the tooling available to explore, navigate, and run the projects. Rory, can you share your experience on creating your first Spring Boot project?
Picture this, the 2000s. I was just a young programmer. I had Notepad and some documentation, and I would go in, I'll create XML by hand and go through it. And it took take me about a week to actually get everything done. And then I'll deploy test, not testing my application, just get the project structure right. And then eventually it will go around, no one touch it ever, because it works on my PC. And now you're going to show me something even better, a demo with everything working from the start.
That's so relatable. Just like you put something together, you patch, and you're like, oh my gosh, like if I even breathe wrong, it's all falling apart.
Yeah. So we have the Spring Initializr extension in VS Code, which integrates with the official Spring Initializr web service. And it allows you to create a Spring Boot project from within VS Code itself. And you get the exact same options you would if you would go to the spring.io website and create your application, but you can do that from within VS Code itself.
Oh, cool.
So if I go to my command palette here and search for Spring Initializr, it gives an option to create a Maven or a Gradle project. I will choose Maven for today. And it gives you this flexibility to customize the configuration, like choose the boot version, language of choice, artifact IDs, build tools, Java version, and even manage your dependencies. For example, I can search for a dependency here and configure it in the application. And then you'll have your first Spring Boot application ready in less than a minute, which you can import directly into VS Code. But I want to use more complex example to show you the power of tooling. So I've used the sample app provided as part of this guide. This is a classic Spring Pet Clinic application. Let me select a directory to start generating and cloning the project into. And we can then open it up in VS Code directly here. Let's explore the project structure here. We have pom.xml with all the dependencies defined. We have build.gradle file here as well. So VS Code's Java support provides full support for build tools like Maven and Gradle. And since this project contains both the build files, it's prompting us to choose between the two. And whether you're a Maven or a Gradle fan, this setup allows you to make an informed choice on which one suits your workflow better. So I'm going with Maven today, and you can see that the tooling is getting enabled here. I've already installed some extensions from the Visual Studio Code Marketplace, and the extensions we are interested in here are extension pack for Java, for the Java language support, and it comes with build tools, test runners, debuggers, and then we have the Spring Boot extension pack, which we just spoke about for the Spring related features. Now I have all my extensions installed and the tooling is enabled. So if I go back to my main class here, let me open the main class here, and you see that tooling gives us these two options, run and debug. This is a very quick way to start up the application quickly from here. Now, once the application is up, I want to show you how you can quickly navigate to the application without having to go to the browser and type out localhost or figure out the port configuration or the request mapping path. For this, I'll go to any of the controller classes here. And whenever you run a Spring Boot application that has actuators in its class path, the tooling will query these actuators to grab live information and try to visualize it in the IDE. And that's what we see this as code lenses showing up here that we can access directly. So this will directly take me to the application. This is a very quick and nice way to navigate to the application. Now, let's try to do something. Let's change the port of the application. And we can do that by going back to our code application.properties, where we define all our Spring Boot properties. And the Spring tooling provides you this content assist to help you with the extensive list of Spring Boot properties that are available. For example, if I start typing server, it'll give you the list of all the properties available under it and does some validations under the hood. For example, if I configure a string value for server.port, it shows an error saying that int is expected. Now let me change this to 8081, save this and try to restart the application. Let me go back to my main class. And once the application is up, let's see if the tooling will pick up the new port configuration change and update the code lenses. So my app seems to be up. I'll go back to my controller here. And you see this, the code lens is updated with my new port configuration. And if I try to access it, there we go. We are in the Pet Clinic app. We all love Pet Clinic application, right?
We have,
it's a very popular.
One quick question. Can we open multiple Spring Boot microservices in a single window?
Yeah, in VS Code, yes. You can have your workspace with multiple Spring Boot apps.
Awesome, thanks.
Cool. Now, we all love Spring Pet Clinic app. This is a app where we can find the list of owners, list of vets, and you can take appointments for your pets. So I've accessed a couple of endpoints in the Pet Clinic application. Now, let me show you how you can get some live metrics for this APIs. So going back to VS Code, I will open my command palette here and search for manage live Spring Boot process connection and click on refresh pet clinic application. Now notice that the IDE is updated with a lot more details here. You can see the count of number of times this API was called and the latency for the call. So this is really helpful when your API is not working as expected. Maybe the response time is longer and you want to understand what is happening behind the hood. We are enriching the application here with live information on the source code on what happened at the runtime. And I find this to be a really useful metric. Now we also see this green highlights in the application. I'll come back to it in a bit, but now let's go do some local code debugging in VS Code. For this, I'll go back to my application here. And we have this feature in the Pet Clinic app where we can get the list of owners. Let's try to understand what's happening when you try to find owners without giving the last name. For this, we'll use the VS Code editor features. And let me first stop the application and start it in debug mode. We can do that from the Java project section here, where we can see our application listed and we have this debug option. Let me select the application, and this will start up the app in debug mode. And the first thing I want to do here is to find the corresponding request mapping. And I'll show you a quick trick on how you can find all the symbols in the project. And this is especially very helpful when you're working on complex code bases and you want to find something quickly. So from VS Code, if I click on Command T, you can find all the symbols from the project. And all this data is gathered by parsing the source code for Spring annotations.
Okay.
Now you can filter through this information as well. For example, if you want to get a list of all the beans in the application, you can filter it this way. Now let's say you want all beans with something with repository on it. You can go ahead and filter further. And this will give you an overview of all the repository beans or beans that are called repository in the application. Now, similarly, we can get a list of all the request mappings from the application by filtering it this way. And the one we are interested in right now for debugging is the owner's endpoint. And if I click on it, it'll directly take me to the implementation of the owner's request mapping. Now, this quick navigation is really helpful when you're working on a huge application and there are multiple APIs and you want to switch between this implementation of these APIs.
Yeah, I love that you're showing a more complex application, because one of the big things we always get on our channel is like if we're showing, just kind of like a really simple sample app, people are like, okay, but like that's not what I'm working on. So like, how does this look when I have a ton of files and a ton of different classes? So this is really awesome. We're getting a chance to see this.
Yes, Pet Clinic is always a very good example.
Yeah.
And yeah, so now let's take a moment to notice all these green hovers which highlight all the active components in the application. So for example, if I hover over this controller, you can see a lot of information here. Basically, this means that the controller got picked up by the component scan and this bean is active in the application. You really get this runtime perspective of the application on what all request mappings are active here. And if you hover over any of this, you get a lot more information that it's available in this process under that URL that you can access directly. So this really gives you this visibility into the application's configuration setup, and you don't have to switch to the Spring Boot documentation to understand the usage of these components. Now, going back to our owner's request mapping, let me try to add a debugging statement here. And while I'm doing this, I want to show you one more interesting feature on how we can do live code changes while debugging in VS Code without having to restart the app. For this, let me quickly add the log statement, and you can see the tooling is giving me this nice content assist while I'm trying to print out the owner details here. Now I have my log statement. I'll put my debug point here and hit on this hot code replace icon. Notice this message here that one changed class is reloaded. Now, if I try to access the owner's endpoint, we hit the debug point and we can either inspect the variable directly here, or we can use this what section, which is more convenient way to inspect the variables. And we see that the last name is coming as null. Now, if I try to flow through this debug point, notice that a log statement gets printed here, which means that our changes got picked up without having to restart the application. So you get this seamless debugging experience with VS Code's Java debugger, and it saves a lot of time and also provides you this quick feedback loop while working on bug fixes.
That's so
Oh,
handy 'cause I know I've had issues with like in other editors or whenever I'm coding and you're like, you make a change and you're like, why can't I see the change? And then you realize it's because you like didn't actually like reload it. You didn't actually do anything. You have to stop it and restart it. So that's super
Yeah.
handy, especially right if you're getting started with something. There's so many
Yes.
things you need to remember. So if this can
Yes.
take care of as many things as possible, that's awesome.
Yes, true. Now I know that developers often deal with multiple applications, and it gets challenging to monitor and manage all these applications. For this, we have the Spring Boot dashboard extension, and all this quick navigation and the live information I've shown so far is also presented in the Spring Boot dashboard extension. So if you go to the extension, we can see our application listed here and a lot more details or live information from the app, like the beans, dependencies, properties, and under the hood, the Spring Boot actuators are used to query and get this live information for the application. Now, as a Spring developer, we define our code, define beans and configurations, but we want to understand how these bean injections are happening at runtime. For this, for example, we just took a look at the owner's endpoint, which gives the list of all owners in the application. Let's go inspect this owner's repository bean here. So if I click on it, it will directly take me to the implementation of the bean. And if I hover over this, you see that the owner repository bean is injected into 4 classes, the owner controller, pet controller, and we can even navigate to these classes quickly from here and see the bean injections. Now going back, you get this two-way information here. Like if I hover over this class again, you see that there are 3 beans injected into owner repository class, for example, the JPA mapping context. So you really get this two-way information on what auto configuration was applied, and we show this information for the developers right on the source code where it belongs. To give you a more relatable example on how this feature is really powerful, take an example of your application is working correctly in your local environment, but the same app deployed on a Kubernetes container or any cloud platform doesn't work as expected. What you could do here is to connect to both the instances and try to compare the behavior of both instances. There could be some configurational beans which are enabled on a particular condition which is not met or enabled on the cloud environment, and that's causing some of the beans to be not activated or configured properly. So you see this, it really bridges this gap and allows you to get this understanding about the auto wiring and what is happening to your source code at the runtime.
Right. Awesome.
Now, going back to the Spring Boot dashboard, we also see a list of all the request mappings or APIs in our application, and we can access them directly from here. And if you find yourself with performance issues, if your users are reporting that your application is slowed down and you suspect that the memory could be the culprit, you have a tool at your disposal that's the memory view in the Spring Boot dashboard. So this is a graphical view that gives you insights into the heap and non-heap memory usage in the application. You can also take a look at the garbage collection activities from the application here. And this is a really nice feature to have alongside your working code. And what makes this feature more valuable is how it allows you to delve into the memory concerns without having to leave VS Code at all. And the first time I showed this to Rory went like, oh, what is this?
Yeah, that's like literally what's going in my mind. Coder Nerd says, learning some new things here. Me too. Like, I didn't realize that this was here. It's so handy. And to be able to actually like, visualize it too. Yeah, I'm like, right now, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Game changer.
Yeah. So we have coded and developed our application, debugged it. Now we can explore on how we can make our application more reliable through comprehensive testing. So let's take a look at the test cases available for the Pet Clinic application. Going to the test folder here, we have a couple of unit test cases. We have MySQL integration test to check the SQL connectivity. We have Postgres integration test here. So VS Code comes with this seamless integration to run JUnit test cases. We have a separate view here where we can see our application listed. And if we expand this, we can see all the packages part of the application, and each package lists the test classes or the test methods. We can go ahead and explore them in detail here. And if you want to run all the test cases for the application, you can do it from the project level here. But for now, let me quickly run a single test case and show it to you. This will start up a local instance, execute my test case, and we can finally get some nice summary of our test results here. We are now confident with our code. We can turn our attention to writing high quality code. So the Spring tools provides extensions for code analysis and validations. And this aligned with the Spring coding framework standards. So if we go to the problem section here, we can see a couple of validations here. Let's explore one of it. If I hover over this, it says unnecessary @auto-wired. So with the latest Spring version, we do not require the @auto-wired annotation when there's only a single constructor in the class. And this integrates well with the Spring Boot documentation to give you this real-time insights about this validation as well. We can apply this quick fix to remove this unnecessary @auto-wired. And under the hood, open rewrite recipes are used to enforce this best practices. And there are more powerful things you can do with open rewrite recipes. And Rory is going to talk more about it in a few minutes. Okay. But while enforcing this best practices, you can also customize it to your project's requirement by going to the settings in VS Code and searching for best practices. Let me collapse this so that we have a better view. And under Spring Boot tools, you can see this list of best practices for Boot 2 and Boot 3 apps. We can go through this list and choose to set them at different levels according to our project's requirement. Now, this is a really powerful feature. And what I really love about it is how it eases us in adapting to the changes that come up with every release. And it also improves the code quality and maintainability, and also ensures that our applications meets the Spring Boot coding standards. Now, we're going to see more magic around open rewrite recipes when Rory is going to talk about the migration. But so far, what we have seen is the tooling and VS Code giving you this holistic Spring development experience to create, define, and iterate through your applications. And we didn't have to leave VS Code for doing any of this. But now let's transition beyond the local environment. And Rory is going to show how VS Code is truly a powerful environment for even professional software development. So over to you, Rory.
Okay, so first of all, I want to tell you that when Udayani showed me the features I'm about to demo, she is right. My jaw was on the floor because it is just so much power that you get to the developer to empower them. Okay, so you see my screen. I'm going to share my screen, and you're going to bring the screen. Okay, so this is the PetLink application. I know this is because Udayani and I are actually sharing it. And I've got the application now. I've pre-deployed it onto a Kubernetes cluster because first, I want to show you monitoring. Then after that, I'm going to show you migration. And then live on air, we're going to deploy it with GitHub Actions with Cloud Native build packs. Nothing can go wrong. Nothing has.
Yeah. I love it, though. A true end-to-end deployment. Let's do it.
And if I blame anything, it's the South African internet, so I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so I've got my two clusters. I've got my cluster, and I've got two nodes here. And if I right-click on the cluster, you'll see there I've got Open Application Live View. And now Udayani said to me that her application doesn't consume a lot of memory. I want to see in production exactly how much memory. So I can go Application Live View here, and it's going to open up the VMware Tanzu DevTools for Azure Spring Apps, which is built into the Kubernetes cluster. And then I can see my nodes here, and I can click through that. And then I've got my information categories here. And then I can go down and check that memory. Now, remember that nice little graph, Olivia, that you said that was like, well, yeah, this is on production. And you get it directly from VS Code to there. And you've got the heap memory, the non-heap memory, the GC pauses, the garbage collection. Everything looks good. And I can also go in and inspect the CPU usage and drop down. And there's so much more that we can go through around it. I've got beans, metrics, actuator. And this is all from the actuator endpoint. Basically, it's a bean that just sits on your server and that just gathers metrics for you.
Wow.
Which
you don't really need to do much to configure this. Once you have that actuator endpoint, it will be.
You just need the actuator, and it just goes in and scans everything. But I'm going to show you so much more. So now I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code, right? And I've showed you Application Live View, which is not to be confused with live information. So I'm going to right-click on my server again. Right at the bottom, it's View Live Information. So I'm going to click on that. You know what this is going to do, Olivia? This is going to go to my server there, connect to it, look at the endpoints there, and get the endpoints.
What?
The endpoint mappings. And now I'm going to go to the owners. So let's go to owners, get here. Check that out. Now, but watch this, watch this. I get the live URL for the server that I have there. Yeah. That's exactly the space that I pulled there. No, it gets better. Wait. I'm going to show you something else. And this is very new around that. So if I click on that, it takes me right to that server. I'm going to create a little bit of telemetry. Now you're kind of smelling what I'm selling here. I'm going to go find owner. And from this telemetry, it's going to talk to my server back there and give me the view of exactly what I did and what I clicked through. Remember, this is could be a staging server. This is a production server. So let's go find owners here. Okay, that's enough telemetry here. Let me go back here. Now I'm going to go refresh it. So I'm going to go view, command palette. I'm going to go manage live Spring Boot process connections. I'm going to go just refresh. Okay. Now watch this. It's got a big graph of telemetry. Ah, there we go. Look at that. Yo. Whoa. So now I hit it 3 times. I went through that, and now it gives me the total time and the max seconds into the Kubernetes cluster. So the actuator is getting all of the telemetry coming back to it and then coming back to your VS Code server. And you can see there, I've got it connected on Azure. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you with view live information. You've also got your beans, your endpoints. I want to disconnect from here because, no, this is just the start, Olivia. I'm going to show you way more than that.
I don't know if I can handle it, Rory.
The next thing is that, look at that little breakpoint there. Okay, watch this. I'm going to go to Azure. And now onto my node here, I'm going to right click and go attach debugger. Now it's going to attach the debugger on one node. Remember, it's load balancing between the 2 nodes. It's going to say, okay, cool, attaching debugger to the instance, access the public endpoints. So now I'm going to go find owners. Remember, it has to daisy chain between the 2 of them. Sometimes Udayani and I have spent like a few minutes there. Oh, wait, no, stop. You see that. Now look at the bottom there of my desktop. It's actually going, something's happened. I go into that something happened, and it's debugging on a Kubernetes cluster and with a Spring application. And I've got my watch endpoints, my variables, and I can actually go in and step into and have that full debug experience. So you've got the live view, you've got the live information, and you've got the same experience as you just push into your Kubernetes cluster. So let's carry on with that. And I want to disconnect from that because I'm happy now. Donnie's app is behaving. I want to go now and check, I want to patch it. Now, we already saw that you can patch it with some nice little annotations, but I see here that there's a newer patch version of Spring Boot available. And it not only can upgrade it, but can patch it. So I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to go upgrade. And it's going to go into my POM and it's going to go now using open rewrite recipes, scan the whole project and patch everything that you need to do. And how it does that, you can actually go in and see the recipes. You can go view, command palette, and you can see their upgrade Spring Boot version, and it'll give you everything it's going to do. So I'm going to drill down into Spring Boot 3.1 while it's doing that. And then I'm going to drill down again. And now you've got best practices here. So over here, I've got I remove unnecessary constructor binding. It's going to scan all of my code, but it's not going to warn me, Olivia. It's going to change the code for me.
Whoa. And this is open rewrite that's doing this?
Yeah, it just goes through the whole code. Open rewrite means that it actually goes and scans and then rewrites your entire project according to the standards that you want.
That's
wild. I've got that. And now I'm going to go into source control. Let's actually just push it down there because I was playing around with it a little bit earlier. Let's go into 3.1.2. Let's go for live. Once I do that, commit and push. I did cheat a little bit with GitHub Copilot. I said, GitHub Copilot, I don't know how to do this in GitHub Actions. It's busy running it right now. I want you to help me. And I had a conversation with it and I said to them, okay, cool. Tell me the best way. It showed me the best practices, which I want to show you now. Now, this is going to take about 4 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes. So we've got 4 to 5 minutes to actually go in and check some of these services. I'm going to close that there. So the first thing is I've broken it up and I said, GitHub Copilot, what is the best industry way? And they said, break it up into a build and then a deploy. So I've got build and then deploy. And this is GitHub Actions. Now in the build, I'm going to do exactly what Udayani mentioned there. I'm going to run Maven, but I'm going to use the Microsoft version of OpenJDK. And just announced today, Olivia, we've just announced Microsoft version 21 of the OpenJDK. So you really want to go out and get it though. It's brand new, hot off the Java wagon, if you can say that though. But we're using Java 17. And now we're going to say, okay, every time you run Maven, which is a package manager, go cache it into GitHub. So something that should take you like 10 minutes to go pull up the files will take you 50 seconds in that regard. So we're going to cache it into the GitHub Actions, and then we're going to build it. So in here, I've actually just said, for speed, I'm on a Maven package and skip the tests, because Donnie already kind of showed you that there's quite a lot of tests in this project. Once I have that, I'm going to create a jar file, which is just a zip file with the project artifact. And then I'm going to take that jar file, I'm going to pop it into my workspace, and I'm going to call the deploy. So I'm going to get that jar file in my deploy stage. I'm going to log into Azure. And then I didn't even know this before GitHub Actions, GitHub Copilot tells me. I'm going to deploy to my Kubernetes cluster using the deploy to Azure Spring Apps action. Okay. Now, I've got my Azure subscription. I've got my service name, my app name. I've got my package, which is my jar file. And then I've got my builder, which is a cloud native build pack. Now I'm using the default builder. I don't want to be special in that, but you can go berserk with that. And the default builder goes in and scans all of your files and says, yeah, you're using a jar file with the Spring Pet Clinic and it's using these dependencies. I'm going to make it cloud native. And it creates a Graal VM image of that, a custom Graal VM image. So you can actually run it super fast, super speed in that regard. It also goes in and patches your entire instance for any critical vulnerabilities. You can also use staging deployments. I'm not going to use that right now, but you can stage and then you can go further in that regard though. So we should actually get somewhere. So check this out. I'm going to just click refresh here. And it should have actually picked up. There we go. And this is, remember, I haven't actually left VS Code. All of this is through there. I've done the build. So if we go there, it's setting up the JDK 17. It's caching the Maven dependencies. It's building with Maven. It's downloading the artifact. It's completing the job. And then in the deploy job, it's getting that jar file. And then it's deploying to Spring Boot Apps. And it's going to do a rollout deploy. Remember, there's 2 nodes there. Let's go watch it live on the air, because there's nothing stressful than cloud native build packs live on air though. So it's going to go in there. Now the novelty of here, did it finish too quickly? Oh, I wanted to show you it live on air. Okay, so let's go into the Spring Boot Apps here, and let's go see what it did there. It takes your jar file. It goes, oh, I think you need the Microsoft OpenJDK, the executable.jar, Spring Boot, and then application insights. And it creates a custom cloud native image for you. Yeah. And this is all part of the Kubernetes Azure Spring Apps instance, though. You get all of that included here. And then it's going to deploy it here. You'll see here, it's going to do a reusing layer, adding label, and then it's going to do a rollout deploy here. Deploy successfully for Spring on that, though. So now let's go into our application and see what we have. So if I go into Visual Studio Code, and this is the secret source here, I want to go back to my Azure view here, Azure, and I want to right click on here, access public endpoints, live on air, and we have Udayani's application there. So I've showed you monitoring it, application live view, live information, debugging, then I've migrated it live on air with open rewrite, pushed the migration through to that. I've showed you the build, GitHub Actions, and the build packs, and then we did a rollout over that, though. So that's a big demo, though. But did you see that all this time, it was the developer workflow that we were kind of empowering the developer for, which is it's a great, joyous experience to be to do this just in VS Code, though. Okay, so back to you, Udayani. I'm going to stay online, and we're going to finish up.
We do have one question. So you were showing this with Azure Spring Apps. Does this only work for Azure, or is it possible with AWS also?
Good news is that probably yes, because our partner VMware actually provides a lot of the tool sets for a lot of the clouds. So they also extend it for Eclipse, for a lot of that. So I'm quite sure that if this would to work on the AWS Spring Apps, it would work though. That being said, I haven't tested it. So come back to me and tweet your results.
Try it out. Cool. Thank you so much, Rory.
Thanks, Rory. And whatever you showed today was like so much information. It's really amazing to see how VS Code gives you the same level of capabilities to even monitor your remote instances as you would do with your local applications. And the game changer for me was the Copilot and you showing the migration. There is a Spring release every few weeks, and I don't have to go to the Spring Boot documentation to understand what are the latest changes and manually apply all these changes to my code. With the migration part was really a game changer on what you showed now. So we saw a lot of things today from the start of the demo. I just want to summarize on our journey today. So we saw how easy it is to create a Spring Boot project right from VS Code. And then we saw how tooling simplifies the complex tasks and allows you to concentrate on your coding, followed by the Spring Code analysis and validation tools allows you to migrate your Spring Boot project safely. And then we saw VS Code supports professional software development with its seamless integration to remote environments, and it enhances the deployment and monitoring capabilities for us. So thank you all for joining us on this talk.
We have a surprise for you. We have a QR code I want you to snap. So get out your mobile phones, and we've got the Spring Boot tool. So you go in there and you get everything whatever we showed you today, remember, is free, except for the Azure stuff, which basically is free also because I kind of haven't incurred any costs really on that also. So you go into aka.ms boot-tools, and then you can get all the Spring extensions here. And I didn't even show you that all of this runs actually on a dev container also, Olivia, which is another thing that we could actually show you though. Yeah, so there's so much to enjoy in the Spring tooling. So I want to thank my lovely, lovely hosts, Udayani and Olivia. It was a great, exciting, and I just want to pinch myself here because this is my dream to be part of this and showcase the empowerment of the Spring tooling.
Oh my gosh. Thank y'all so much for being here. Seriously, we have a couple of comments, mind blown. People are agreeing. They're saying it's too true. They love your energy. Yeah, I just want to say thank y'all for this. I feel like I've learned a lot. I love also how you kind of did Udayani's first demo with showing that inner loop, the local, and then we moved to Rory's, and you could see kind of the parallels, right? Which makes it really great because it's like, okay, if I'm just getting started, I'm going to be starting just local, right? I'm like, I'll be overwhelmed if I have to go straight to Kubernetes. So it's really great to see, okay, well, if I was just starting out, I could do this, do the local, I have all this built in. And then once I get to the point of wanting to migrate, wanting to deploy, it really is like, you don't have to change your cycle at all. It's so powerful. I feel like, I don't know, I want to go just create one of these apps now. I'm like really excited. And I feel like there's so much here, but then at the same time, it was kind of like, okay, you put it in Kubernetes. A lot of it then is like out of like, you don't have to do much. It's kind of like, there's so much to harness, but it's not stuff that you have to be like micromanaging and doing all this stuff with and like taking forever to set up. It's just like, it's there. My mind is blown if you can't tell.
Then we achieved our goal for today.
There we go. Yeah, lots of comments. This was great. Thank you so much. Tuan, I know that this was probably a joke. I'm thinking that soon we'll be able to order pizza in VS Code. I do think that there's like a pizza extension and it like pulls up your local like Domino's or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but I think that there is.
That is cool. I'm gonna go look that up now.
Yeah, go look it up. And then Coder Nerd also mentioned I just discovered dev containers. So I mean, honestly, I feel like we could do a whole other stream just on like doing this, but with dev containers would be so cool. I love dev containers. So like anytime I can see new ways to use them and leverage them, I'm like, yes, bring it on. So
I love the power that I can just spin up a container, which is better than my laptop. Just insanely powerful and quick and just hardwired directly to the internet. It's just, a man can go drunk with that amount of power.
You get too much power. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, we usually end on a lightning round, but before we go into that, is there anything else that y'all want to talk about with Spring Boot applications or just, any links or documentation you want to share with the viewers?
I think we have this links attached in this session for all our Spring Boot extensions and channels.
Awesome.
And if there are any issues or any feature requests, you can go to our Spring Boot repo and raise it there.
Good news is that Udayani built this. So I'm just here as a fanboy, but she actually is the wizard of this though.
That's
Well, it's
awesome.
my entire team.
Is the repo that you were showing, is that public so people can check it out?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's you just search for Spring Pet Clinic. It's the same repo that we
Cool.
used, and you can just go in and use that.
All right, I'm about to go play around with that like nonstop. Awesome. All right, well, thank you all so much. Let's go ahead and we'll end on our lightning round for a couple of quick questions. Okay, these are just, if y'all haven't been in our live streams before, for the viewers, a lot of times we like to just end with like a quick lightning round and on a lighthearted note, get to know our hosts a little better, but all in good fun. So both of you have to answer these questions. First one, hard one, polarizing one, GIF or GIF?
So I'm South African. Yeah, so go, Udayani.
I think it's GIF, but it really depends on the day. There are occasions where I've used GIF as well, so but I'll go with GIF.
So I'm South African, and we are very, very broad with our consonants. So if I see a giraffe, I don't say giraffe. I say there's a giraffe, and then so it will be a GIF because it's like I drop everything in that sense. So it's a GIF.
Oh, okay. All right. I like that answer. Okay. All right. So similar question, but Jason or JSON? And I'm kind of, with this one, I kind of switch depending on my mood. But what do y'all do?
Jason for me. Jason any day.
Yeah.
I will never go up against a JavaScript developer because they are powerful human beings, though. So I will say whatever they want me to say. Okay. So if your JavaScript developers say, you know, I know the Node ecosystem, whatever you want me to say is my answer.
I know. I used to be like hardcore JSON, but JSON just flows off so much better. And I was filming a video and I was saying JSON, and then halfway through I realized I just switched to JSON because it just was going like way easier. So I think I'm more of a JSON believer now, but we'll see. Okay. So this one can be coding related or personal related, however you want to answer. What is your biggest pet peeve?
This is interesting. Oh, yeah, I think I have one. So I do not like when people use short forms in the messages or in the normal conversation. I'll be like, please use the full word, type it out, or spell out the full word.
Oh, that's so
that
interesting. Oh my gosh. So if it's like, so I do this a lot with like, because I'll just do like BC. Does that bother you?
A little, yeah.
Okay. Good to know before I send you any shorthand. That's so funny.
Okay, so mine is a little bit weird. I argue with Copilot. It's my greatest peeve. My daughter came in and she said, "What are you doing? Who are you screaming at?" And it was Copilot because it refused. I said to them, I need a project inside there and with some code that is incorrect. It goes, "I'm sorry, Copilot doesn't make incorrect code." I said, just this is for demonstration purposes. And then I had to say, "Are you sure? Are you everything like that?" And I was like, "No, yes, do it like that." And then my daughter says, "Are you screaming at the AI again?" So that's my newest pet peeve, though.
It's like a norm. Like your family's like, "Oh, Dad's just doing that." That's so funny. We actually had a couple weeks ago, we did the release party and we were talking about Copilot in it. And actually everyone in the chat was talking about how they try to be very nice to Copilot chat. Like they like explicitly are like, "Please and thank you." So Rory, I think you probably polarized a lot of people watching.
Yeah, always be sentiment positive. Even if you're angry with the murder bot, you want to tell it like, "Please and thank you," because else it goes, "Oh, human angry. I'm going to go into different mode."
I know, it triggers it. Oh, that's funny. Man, these were good pet peeves. Okay, last one. And I think I know you both have to say different answers though. But what's one VS Code extension that you cannot live without?
I think for me, it's lately been dev containers. It's something that I'm exploring, and I find this to be really convenient. Like one configuration file, and then you have a consistent environment to deploy to. And you can also, we also tried this enabling the Spring tools in the dev container, and this is really amazing, whatever the capabilities that come with dev containers.
Nice.
Mine is GitHub. Mine is GitHub Copilot, because sometimes I just need a friend. I just need to turn around and I go, "Hey, how you doing? This is a nice project. What do you think about it?" And give me some overview of it though. But I just got pushed the new Windows update, and now I have Copilot everywhere. I've got it on Windows. I've got it on Office. I've got it on Edge. I've got it in everything like that. I feel like I'm cheating on GitHub Copilot. Like I'm supposed to, like, who do I prefer? Where do I go? I've got so many of them running around.
Yeah, GitHub Copilot's like, I was the first. I'm over here. Don't forget about me. That's so funny. I mean, Rory, you were talking about earlier being like feeling like drunk on power. Like there's something that's going to make you feel drunk on power. I feel like it's all the copilots, and you're just like, do everything for me. Like you literally have your own personal assistant. And like everywhere.
I'm going to pick a side. I'm going to marry one of them, and I'm just going to stick with it.
All right, let me know who you pick and how that goes. All right, well, that's all the questions we have for lightning round. Thank you both again so much for being here. I learned a lot. I know all of our viewers did. To everyone watching, thank you so much for watching. This will be on our YouTube channel, so you can replay, get all that goodness, and all those links that we've shared will also be in that description. So with that, again, thank y'all. I'm sure we'll have you on in the future, hopefully, maybe talk about dev containers or any other new developments. And with that, we'll see y'all later. Have a great day.
Cheers, everyone.